You think you know the story. You think it's about bad managers, clueless players, and a bunch of bad luck. You've seen the memes, the terrible results, the endless carousel of failure. But what if I told you that all of it, every single bit of the chaos and the comedy, was a direct result of a single, deeply flawed decision made almost 2 decades ago? A decision that turned one of the world's biggest football clubs into a piggy bank. This is the story of the unholy trinity: the Glazers, Ed Woodward, and the inevitable downfall of Manchester United. And the real price of this failure isn't just the lack of trophies. It's the £1.6 billion that was drained from the club, all while you were watching. To understand this entire mess, you have to go back to 2013, to the single moment that created a vacuum so big it swallowed an entire club: Sir Alex Ferguson's retirement. For nearly 3 decades, Ferguson wasn't just a manager. He was a de facto sporting director, a visionary, and the footballing soul of the club all in one. He rebuilt teams from the ground up, kept massive egos in check, and was the absolute authority on every footballing decision. When he retired, he took that unparalleled genius with him. And crucially, so did CEO David Gill. Suddenly, the club was left with a monumental void. There was no pre-existing structure to fill the gap left by 2 men who had run the club for over 25 years. The stage was set for a decade of pure, unadulterated chaos. But the seeds of that chaos were planted much earlier. The first and most critical domino to fall was the Glazer family's leveraged buyout in 2005. Imagine buying a multi-million-pound house, but instead of using your own money, you take out a massive loan and use the house itself as collateral. You then use the rent from the tenants to pay off your own mortgage. That's a leveraged buyout, and that is exactly what the Glazers did to Manchester United. They bought the club for £790 million, but saddled it with over £550 million of its own debt. A previously debt-free club was now a cash cow designed for financial extraction. And over the past 20 years, the scale of that extraction is staggering. According to financial analysts, the Glazers have drained an estimated £1.6 billion from the club. This includes over £800 million in interest payments alone, £166 million in dividends paid directly to themselves, a practice unique among all Premier League clubs, and a personal profit of over £465 million from selling shares, with none of the money going back into the club. This is a moral debt as much as a financial one. While the owners were getting rich, the historic stadium, Old Trafford, was left to rot, with reports of a leaking roof and pest infestations. This financial model created a slow-burning competitive disadvantage that defined an entire era. It's the kind of money that rivals like Manchester City have invested into their club to build their dynasties. This financial model directly led to the next domino: the appointment of Ed Woodward. A former investment banker who helped with the Glazers' takeover, Woodward was a commercial genius. He famously uncoupled the club's commercial success from its on-field performance, signing multi-million-pound deals with sponsors even as the team struggled. But his background was in banking, not football. As former player Nemanja Vidic said, Woodward was above his knowledge and his capability to handle the intricacies of player and agent relationships. For years, Woodward refused to appoint a director of football, the single most important role in a modern club. He claimed, "The decisions related to recruitment are all taken by football experts. My involvement is signing off the money." But that was a lie. This hands-on, clueless approach led to a scattergun transfer policy and a series of catastrophic signings. Angel Di Maria. Signed for a then-record fee, he was hailed as a dream signing, but his tenure was a nightmare that lasted less than a year, with the player openly admitting he never wanted to leave Real Madrid. Alexis Sánchez. He was a superstar at Arsenal, but arrived at United on astronomical wages and scored just 3 league goals in 18 months. Paul Pogba. His £89 million return was a blockbuster move that was marked by inconsistency and a lack of trophies, ultimately resulting in him leaving the club on a free transfer for the second time. These weren't just bad signings, they were a symptom of a toxic club culture that had no clear vision, no tactical identity, and a leadership structure that was fundamentally broken. The lack of a unifying vision led to a carousel of clashing tactical styles. Ferguson's win rate was 65%. His successors? A sobering 50% on average. David Moyes, handpicked by Ferguson but struggled to fill the void. He was sacked after just 10 months. Louis van Gaal introduced a rigid, possession-based style that was as slow and frustrating as dial-up internet. Jose Mourinho, a winner who brought some trophies, but his tenure was defined by a defensive approach and public clashes that created a toxic environment. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, a club legend who brought back the feel-good factor but ultimately failed to win a single trophy in nearly 3 years. This constant managerial churn meant no long-term squad development could ever take root. Each new manager brought in players for their own system, only for those players to become devalued assets when the next manager arrived. The club was stuck in a vicious cycle of short-term fixes. The downfall wasn't due to one bad manager or one bad player. It was a multi-layered, interconnected crisis. It started with the Glazers' leveraged buyout, which created a financial model that prioritized extraction over investment. This led to the appointment of a commercially minded executive in Ed Woodward, who in turn failed to build a coherent football structure. This created the tactical chaos of a managerial merry-go-round and the most wasteful transfer policy in football history. The club was a house built on quicksand, and the moment Ferguson's genius was removed, it was always going to sink. The £1.6 billion wasn't just spent, it was a symptom of a club that had lost its way, a price paid for a decade of mismanagement and a failure to build a foundation to withstand a single, crucial departure. But now, a new chapter is beginning with the arrival of Sir Jim Ratcliffe and his INEOS group. Their first moves weren't on the pitch, but in the boardroom. They've brought in a new CEO from Manchester City, Omar Barada, a new technical director, Jason Wilcox, also from City, and are targeting a new sporting director. This is the first time in over a decade that the club is actively building the football-first structure that it is so desperately lacked. They've recognized the problem is systemic, not just about who's on the pitch. However, the path forward won't be easy. The toxic club culture of dressing room leaks that plagued previous managers has reportedly continued under the new regime. This shows that the rot is deeply ingrained and won't be fixed overnight. Now, the journey to win back its soul has only just begun. So, what do you think? Can Ratcliffe and his team undo a decade of systemic damage? Or will the ghost of the Glazers' past continue to haunt Old Trafford? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to see if the new leadership can finally fix the broken machine, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. We'll be watching every step of the way.